from North Lawndale community come up and have some discussions with you all regarding the community, and then we'll pass it on to Chief of Detectives Brendan Denahan for comments for investigative follow-ups from over the weekend, and then I'll come at the end with comments, and then we'll take questions. No?
Good morning. My name is Norman Kerr, Director of the Office of Violence Reduction in the Mayor's Office. We are right here in the heart of summer, and we are undoubtedly faced with considerable challenges regarding the levels of violence in our city. However, Mayor Lightfoot remains committed to an all-government and all-city response to address this issue of violence. The Summer Safety Strategy is a coordinated effort that includes participation from various city departments to collectively focus on 15 areas on south and west sides of Chicago due to consistent violence over the past 3 summers in these areas. Every week at this press conference, we applaud the work of city departments, including CPD, Parks, BACP, CDOT, and others, and our community partners, faith institutions, community-based organizations, street outreach, and victim services partners. And we will continue to applaud these groups for their steady and consistent contributions because it truly takes an all-city response to tackle this issue. Let me add that street outreach workers and peacekeepers are working to mitigate violence into the wee hours of the morning, putting their lives on the line to increase the safety of our city. Unfortunately, some have been shot recently and some have succumbed to their injuries. And still, there are committed individuals who continue to work despite these challenging conditions. Furthermore, we are sending our condolences to the families of street outreach workers, peacekeepers, and residents that have experienced the loss of loved ones this past weekend and this year. The city is poised to assist those in need of services with connections to various organizations that specialize in providing support to victims and their families, including short and long-term mental health services for all family members. Please visit the website for the Mayor's Office of Violence Reduction for more details. In closing, we will continue to emphasize the importance of an all-hands-on-deck approach and express special thanks to all those who remain committed to increasing the safety of our communities and our city. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Pastor James Brooks. I am a resident of North Lawndale. I also serve as a pastor in North Lawndale at Harmony Community Church. I'm also a leader at Lawndale Christian Health Center. I was here not long ago, and I just want to reiterate about the people of North Lawndale. Matter of fact, 2 of the young men, my godsons, stand with me. I have Floyd and Lloyd, who have been born and reared in North Lawndale. And I just want to tell you about North Lawndale a little bit, is that it's an awesome community. It's a community that faces challenges, but it's a community where the people are resilient. And with limited resources, we come together to make a difference in the lives of our young people, contrary to what you may hear about. I want to leave you with some points that I learned from a lawyer by the name of Brian Stevenson. You guys may have heard of him, Just Mercy. 4 points that he lifts up that I would like to just share briefly. One of our strategies in North Lawndale is to become proximate. Being with our young people matters. Being close to our young people makes all the difference in the world. Second point is to change the narrative. Change the narrative. We have some awesome things going on in North Lawndale. We have some wonderful people. The police and community come together to work together like I've never seen in years past. But I'm thankful for the 10th District even being a great partner with the community. Third point is offering hope. There is hope. We experienced a rough patch last week, Now, it was worse. It was tragic. Losing young people, seeing young people being gunned down, that was tragic. But there's still hope. There's still hope, and we won't give up. Number 4 is being courageous. Being courageous. Standing together and saying, no matter what, we're going to step outside of our doors, and we're going to step forward, and we're going to love on our young people. We're going to share information that we know with Chicago police so they can apprehend any suspects. We're going to be courageous on this journey. And then finally, I want to lift up my own point, and that's to all the city of Chicago. Let's not give up on our young people. Let's not give up on these efforts. Yeah, I know sometimes it seems as though we're taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back, but we're still moving forward. Let's keep moving forward and being courageous and not giving up. Scripture tells us, be not weary in well-doing, but in due season we will reap if we faint not. So I want to challenge you, instead of pointing fingers at one another, put your arms around some young people. Everybody, put your arms around a young person today and say, we're going to do this together.
Thanks, Pastor. And as the pastor mentioned, a lot of positive things going on. And I know I normally talk about the shooting incidents, but we don't always cover all the positive things that are occurring in these communities. So a couple of things that I'll cover quickly and turn it back over to the superintendent is we did have 2 police-related shooting incidents last night, 1 on duty, 1 off duty. Obviously, COPA is doing a lot of investigation as well, so I can't give a lot of detail out, but I will give some basic information. One incident happened at near 45th and Drexel. On-duty officers in uniform were chasing an offender armed with a handgun. The offender discharged his firearm once, and the officer in return discharged his firearm, striking the offender. That offender is in custody, and charges are pending. And like I said, I can't give too much more detail on that investigation. There was a second incident up in near the 20th District, near 1400 North Magnolia. This officer was off duty, seated in a vehicle. Appears it was an attempt carjacking where he pushed the offender's gun away and then discharged his firearm. There is nobody in custody, and it appears nobody was struck for that incident. We did have one of the murders over the weekend near 68th in Peoria. We had a 17-year-old who suffered a fatal gunshot wound and a 15-year-old who also was shot in extremely critical condition. The detectives are working with individuals on the scene, and it appears another juvenile was the offender for that incident, and that individual is not in custody, but the detectives are working that investigation and working with the individuals to bring that, to arrest that individual. I know there was some reporting on an incident in River North where an individual was stabbed and shot. And once again, that's pretty active, ongoing investigation. Nobody is in custody at this time, but detectives do have some leads on that investigation. There was also a carjacking mission done over the weekend with Chicago Police Department and many other agencies, including Cook County, our federal partners, as well as our suburban partners, where a total of 9 arrests were made, 5 handguns were recovered, and 16 vehicles were recovered, 6 of which were hijacked and 10 of which were stolen. So I just want to thank everybody who took part in that mission. They did an excellent job. With that, I will turn it back over to the superintendent.
So as I mentioned, every presser as much as I can. For the weekend, our gun recoveries were 104. And for the year, gun recoveries are at 6,865, which is a 25% increase over 2020. We did have a couple of notable things that happened over the weekend that I want to convey to you. One was our command staff. All of our command staff participated in 2 community events. One was an Operation Wake Up there in the 10th District. And we had not only Congressman Danny Davis, Alderman Michael Scott, but other faith leaders, outreach workers, community activists, and area residents all participated in Operation Wake Up, which was a static event, but also we did a walk after the event ended. Secondly, the command staff also participated on Saturday morning in a peace walk in the 15th district. At this peace walk, Alderman Mitz, along with Congressman Davis again, along with local clergy and residents, we participated in a peace walk and marched down Chicago Avenue. Notable arrests that we've made this past week are a couple, if I can find them. 18-year-old Tavares McKinley was arrested twice in less than a month. Both times he was arrested for aggravated unlawful use of a weapon. 18-year-old Tavares McKinley was arrested twice in less than a month by Chicago police officers. Both arrests were for aggravated unlawful use of a weapon. And Andrew Moore, 26, was arrested for a couple of charges. One, a person was sitting in their Mercedes and they noticed a Dodge Charger parked behind them. The Charger had been stolen 2 days prior. Offender Moore exited the Charger and entered the victim's vehicle from the passenger door and displayed a handgun. The offender ordered the victim out of the vehicle. Both vehicles drove away. Both the Charger and the Mercedes drove away with the offender in it. There was a license plate that was registered on our license plate reader. Third district officers observed the vehicle while monitoring the radio transmissions. During this apprehension, the driver of the offender vehicle struck a marked unit several times and fled several times. After striking the marked vehicle, the offender vehicle was eventually disabled due to the accident, and the offender was approached and arrested. This offender has a criminal history of not only possessing stolen motor vehicles, but also unlawfully possessing a weapon by a felon. This is just two highlights that Chicago police officers are doing their job. They're doing their part in helping address the violent crime wave we are seeing here in Chicago and across the country. And no one would do what these officers are doing, which is face down these armed individuals who are not afraid to use their weapons on police officers as well as people in the community. Officers are running toward danger each and every day, risking their lives for the people of Chicago. The officers shot at overnight, I believe, were the 36th and 37th officers shot at or shot this year, which highlights the bravery and courage that officers are displaying. And finally, I would say this, we are not obviously going to quit. We are dedicated and committed to pursuing justice for our victims. And I would highlight, finally, in closing, before I take questions, that violent offenders need more serious consequences in our courts. And I would encourage media, journalists, to use the same energy when you obviously confront all of us every Monday regarding what are we doing, and I answer what we are doing. Be as adversarial to the courts. I would ask journalists to be as adversarial to the courts. And there is documentation from journalists in this city that violent offenders are being released back to these communities that are seeing violence. Chicago Tribune reported in several articles that over 90 people charged with murder. This is not Superintendent Brown reporting this. This is the Chicago Tribune reporting that over 90 people charged with murder have been released back on electronic monitoring. I would encourage you in the media to sit in bond court and see the violent offenders being released back into the community each and every day. I would ask you to report on violent offenders being released and repeatedly arrested by Chicago police officers. Don't report Superintendent Brown said this. I would ask, be adversarial to the courts and the message from the courts that it's anecdotal that violent offenders are repeat offenders that are released back into our communities. With that, I'll take questions. I would defer. I believe there's mayor's office is going to have a press release here shortly to this subject, so I would defer to that later today. Any other questions? Yes. Again, I want to highlight the work that Chicago police officers are doing. They're arresting people charged with murder. They're arresting them. They're arresting other violent offenders charged with robbery, charged with carjacking, as we mentioned. We are arresting the violent offenders. The courts are releasing these people back into the community. It's documented in media reports. It's documented in empirical studies. It's the media's job to find and be adversarial to the courts. You should be adversarial to government, all branches, not just the executive branch. You should be adversarial to the courts. Use the same energy that you just asked me that question to ask the courts, why are you releasing violent people, dangerous people that Chicago police officers arrest and charge back into these communities to create this environment of lawlessness that we're seeing here. Be adversarial to the courts is my plea to the media gallery this morning. Be adversarial. There are media reports that document what's happening in the courts. Use those as your citations, not the superintendent. Sit in bond court. The way you're sitting here, sit in bond court and see the people being charged with unlawful use of a gun by a felon, aggravated use of a gun by a felon, being released back into these communities the same day they are arrested. That should be a headline in this city, and it's not. So be adversarial to the courts. Again, we're asking you to do your job in the way you do it with other branches of government in the city. It answers the question. It answers the question because every Monday I go through, how many guns we recover. This is a violence issue with guns here. People are being shot by guns in the wrong hands of people who are repeatedly arrested by Chicago police officers. That's the answer to your question. What can Chicago police officers do? They can continue to be brave and courageous, committed and dedicated in arresting violent offenders. My question to you is, ask what the courts can do different. Rather than release violent people back to these communities to create an environment of lawlessness, can the courts hold people in jail who are violent, who have been arrested, who have been charged with murder? Murder. I don't think there's another city in this country releasing people charged with murder back into the community on electronic monitoring. Yes. It is the baseline for policing, what we're doing. We are not judge, juror, or jailer. Our democracy set it up that way for a good reason. There should be independence of each of the branches that enforce the law. If we had our druthers, we would keep violent people in jail longer. We would hold them accountable for their violence, that we would not release murderers back into the community on electronic monitoring, that we would hold absconders from the electronic monitoring program more accountable. There's people AWOL from electronic monitoring. We would fund the sheriff much more so that he would have the capacity to manage the electronic monitoring program. We would challenge any and all documents that support releasing violent people. But we're not the media, we're not the jail, we're not the funders for the sheriff. What we can do different is continue to highlight these issues that impact what our effectiveness can be. We can only arrest violent offenders, and we're doing it at the highest level historically in the Chicago Police Department's history. We're on pace to recover 12,000 guns. Every gun recovered is a potential life saved, a potential deadly force encounter with our police officers and these violent people who shot at us last night, who shot at us 35 other times this year. What we can do different is challenge the courts to render Chicago safe by holding violent offenders in jail longer, not releasing murderers back into our community. That's what we can do different.
Are you calling
for? Or fund the sheriff to the capacity to manage it, what he's been asking for. I echo his plea to the funders of the courts, the county. He needs the funding to manage the 3,000 people on electronic monitoring. He has no capacity to manage those people. Many are AWOL. Many don't show up to court. They fail to appear in court, make their court dates. This is not something that I believe can be done behind closed doors. The judges are elected, the prosecutors are elected. This is a plea in the public square to the people of Chicago who elected the people that run the courts. That's why this is not a closed door meeting. We meet and we respectfully disagree. I have high regard for Judge Evans and State Prosecutor Kim Fox. I do have high regard. We disagree, and there should be a natural tension between the courts. There shouldn't be a rubber stamp on what policing want for offenders. There shouldn't be a rubber stamp. I'm not asking for a rubber stamp, but it is unconscionable to release more than 90 people, according to the Chicago Tribune, charged with murder. It's unconscionable. It's just as frustrating that it's not in your headlines, except for the Chicago Tribune. Use that citation, other media sources. Use that citation for your reports about the people charged with murder. Don't use superintendent's quote. Use the citation from another media report that's under the Chicago Tribune is a very ethical paper, by the way. They wouldn't run something in their paper that wouldn't at least have two other sources that convey that it's an accurate report. It has editors, right? So editors signed off on that article written. So you can use that. You can use that article in the Chicago Tribune as your citation for over 90 people charged with murder, released back on electronic monitoring into these very communities. Thank you very much.